Look at it. Chapter 1 here, verse 21. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. Again, that's a phrase that we might quickly look over to get to the other stuff, but it is essential. The angel is telling Joseph to name the child. All throughout Scripture, the idea of naming is really important. To name something in Scripture is to lay claim to something, take responsibility for it, and take authority over it. In Genesis, we see the first time naming happens when all of the animals parade before Adam, and he is given the authority to name them. He is taking responsibility and authority over the animals. Then, in chapter 2, Eve is created, and Adam says, "This at last is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man." Adam names her. In Genesis 17, when God makes a covenant with Abram and Sarai, he renames them, Abraham and Sarah, claiming responsibility and authority over them. In Genesis chapter 35, the story of Jacob wrestling with God. And he says, "You will no longer be called Jacob, but Israel." He renames him. And then even in the Gospel of Matthew, when Jesus comes to Peter, he says, "You shall no longer be called Simon, but I call you Peter." Jesus renames him, claiming authority over him. Even today, we see how the biblical tradition has seeped into our culture today, whether we like to admit it or not. I mean, thankfully, we still allow parents to name their children. There's meaning to that. That's important. But not only that, but when a couple gets married, it's less now, but still relatively normal, the wife takes the husband's last name. That comes from the biblical tradition of naming. That's where that comes from. And so when the angel commands Joseph to name the child Jesus, he isn't just saying, "Man, this is going to be super cool name with a lot of meaning behind it." He is actually commanding Joseph to adopt the baby. When he says, "Joseph, you're the one who's going to name this child," he's saying, "I want you, Joseph, to claim responsibility over this baby and bring it into your family. I want you, Joseph, son of David, to make Jesus a son of David as an adopted heir."